On the edge of the galaxy, on a massive space station called Xylar 9, there was a chamber that no one dared enter. It was called the Cursed Chamber. Everyone on the station knew about it, but nobody knew exactly what was inside. Some said it was full of traps. Others said it was haunted by the spirits of ancient aliens. But one thing was certain: no one who entered ever came back the same. Many never came back at all. The chamber sat at the end of a long hallway. Its door was tall, silver, and covered in strange glowing symbols that no one could understand. Alien scientists, soldiers, and explorers had all tried to enter. They wore protective suits, carried advanced tools, and even brought weapons. But each time something stopped them. Some would freeze in fear as soon as they stepped inside. Others would see visions of things they could not explain and flee screaming. A few would collapse on the floor and be carried out unconscious. The story of the Cursed Chamber spread across the station. Aliens whispered about it in the corridors. "It is alive," they said. "It knows who you are. It tests your mind and your heart." Others shrugged and said it was just a strange place, nothing more. But no one ever dared prove it. Outside the chamber, life went on as usual. Aliens walked past, busy with their duties. Scientists conducted experiments. Guards patrolled the halls. And somewhere in the midst of it all, a human named Jack moved quietly with a mop and bucket. Jack was the janitor of Xylar 9. He did not wear fancy suits or carry tools for exploration. He did not care about fame or glory. He cared only about keeping the station clean and making sure the floors were safe. Jack was small compared to the aliens around him, and he was often overlooked. He had messy brown hair, a plain blue jumpsuit, and a calm smile. He was always eating something while he worked: a sandwich, a snack, or sometimes just an apple. Today he had a sandwich in one hand and a mop in the other. He hummed a tune his mother used to sing when he was a boy on Earth. As he moved down the hallway, he noticed the cursed chamber door again. It always looked strange to him, but he did not think much of it. "Another scary alien story," he muttered. He leaned on his mop and took a bite of his sandwich, watching the strange glowing symbols on the door. Some of the symbols moved slightly, like they were alive. Jack tilted his head. That's weird," he said, chewing slowly. Then he shrugged and continued his work. Inside the station, groups of aliens would gather to discuss the chamber. Scientists argued about its energy fields. Warriors claimed it was cursed by a powerful alien emperor long ago. Explorers tried to figure out if it contained treasure or knowledge. Everyone had a theory, but none had proof. They debated endlessly, scribbling notes and running simulations, but nothing worked. One day, a group of alien students visited the chamber. They wanted to test their courage. They wore bright suits with protective helmets. They approached the door carefully. One of them reached out to touch the symbols, and instantly, his body stiffened. His eyes widened and he dropped to the floor, trembling. The others panicked and pulled him back. They all agreed: the chamber had rejected them. Meanwhile, Jack had finished mopping another corridor. He looked back at the chamber and yawned. He was hungry again and wanted another bite of his sandwich. He did not feel fear. He did not think about curses or ghosts. To him, it was just another door in a big station. He walked closer, wiping his hands on a rag. He tilted his head at the symbols and muttered, "Interesting, nothing scary here." Even as the aliens around the chamber argued, Jack continued his work calmly. He did not know the stories. He did not care about the warnings. The cursed chamber had become a challenge for everyone else, a place of fear and mystery. But to Jack, it was just another part of his job, another place to sweep the floor near. Unseen by him, the symbols on the door flickered slightly. The chamber seemed to sense his presence. It had never seen someone so calm, so ordinary, and yet so unaware of danger. Deep inside, the cursed chamber began to stir, as if curious about this strange human who walked past it, chewing his sandwich and humming a tune. No one on the station noticed. They were too busy fearing the chamber. But for the first time in centuries, the door's energy seemed to pause, almost waiting. And Jack, the human janitor, walked away, finishing his bite, leaving the legends and the whispers behind. The chamber waited quietly, patient as it always had, for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to enter. And for the first time, someone might walk in without fear, without preparation, without knowing what was supposed to happen. Jack did not know it yet. But soon everything would change. Jack was finishing his rounds on the upper floors of Xylar 9. He had mopped the wide corridors, emptied trash bins, and even polished the metal railings that gleamed under the artificial lights. The station was enormous, with halls that twisted like a maze, and Jack knew most of it better than anyone else. His steps were quiet, almost unnoticed. He liked it that way. In his hand was another half-eaten sandwich. He had paused earlier to take a bite while checking the corners for dust. It was a simple habit, but it made him feel at home even on this massive alien station. As he walked down a quieter hallway, he noticed a bucket of water that had been left by one of the other cleaners. The water had spilled slightly onto the floor, creating a slippery patch. Jack frowned. "Not safe," he muttered. He set his mop down and carefully stepped around the puddle. But as he did, he saw that the quickest way to continue his cleaning would be through the nearby hallway, the one that led straight to the cursed chamber. The door to the chamber was still as tall and silver as ever, with glowing symbols that pulsed faintly. Alien scholars had told him to stay away, but Jack did not pay much attention. "Legends are legends," he said to himself. "I've got a job to finish." He pushed open the heavy door without hesitation. It moved easily as if welcoming him. A faint humming sound filled the air, almost musical, and the light inside glowed brighter than the hallway. Jack stepped in, still chewing his sandwich. He paused, looked around, and shrugged. That's odd," he said. Then he took another bite. Inside, the chamber was larger than it seemed from the outside. The walls shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid, and strange shapes floated in the air. Some shapes looked like alien animals, others like stars and galaxies spinning slowly. The floor beneath Jack's feet was smooth and slightly warm. From a small observation window outside, a group of alien guards and scientists watched in shock. "It's impossible," one of them shouted. "No one survives for more than a few seconds." Another shook his head. It's ignoring him." Meanwhile, Jack continued walking. He had learned to ignore strange things during his work. Odd noises from the vents, tools moving on their own, or lights flickering. This was no different. He casually stepped over a floating crystal that glowed red and hummed softly. He even offered a tiny piece of his sandwich to the crystal, joking, "You hungry little guy?" The crystal flickered but did not harm him. The chamber seemed to notice. The lights flickered, the shapes spun faster, and a low voice whispered from nowhere. "Who are you?" it asked. Jack stopped and tilted his head. "Me? I'm Jack. I work here. I clean floors." He smiled politely, then shrugged. "Not sure what you wanted me to be." The voice echoed again, softer this time, like a sigh. "This chamber tests strength, courage, mind. No human has passed." Jack blinked. He was used to people talking to themselves while cleaning. "Well, I passed the mop test today." "Does that count?" he asked out loud, still taking small bites of his sandwich. Suddenly the chamber reacted. Walls shifted, shadows stretched, and a cold wind brushed against him. Other humans or aliens might have panicked, but Jack kept walking. He focused on his mop in the corner, noticing a small puddle that needed cleaning. He wiped it, not realizing the chamber was testing him. Strange visions appeared. Figures of warriors charging, fires burning, whispers of fear echoing around him. But Jack only nodded politely. "Hello there. Busy day, huh?" he said and continued walking. He laughed softly when a ghostly figure reached out toward him. "Careful, buddy, you'll get dust on you," he joked. Outside, the aliens could hardly believe what they were seeing. Cameras showed him moving calmly while the chamber's defenses and illusions tried to stop him. Every human or alien before had screamed, frozen, or run. But Jack moved naturally, unconcerned, unaffected by fear or trickery. Finally, Jack reached the center of the chamber. A glowing pedestal floated above the ground, and on it rested a small, shining artifact. The colors inside the chamber swirled around it like a miniature galaxy. Jack stared for a moment, then sat down on the floor, finishing his sandwich. "This is a nice room," he said quietly. "Very colorful. And, I like the middle. Good view." He stretched his legs and yawned. Outside, the aliens were panicking. He's not supposed to survive this," one cried. The chamber pulsed again as if confused. The rules it had followed for centuries, fear, terror, pride, knowledge, meant nothing to Jack. His simple human nature, his calm attitude, and his complete lack of fear made him immune. Jack stood, stretched, and finally said, "Well, time to get back to work." He left the artifact alone and walked toward the door, finishing the last bite of his sandwich. The chamber pulsed one last time, almost like a sigh, and the door closed gently behind him. No alarms sounded. No traps triggered. Nothing exploded. For the first time in centuries, the cursed chamber had been entered, and survived, by a human janitor eating a sandwich. And outside, the aliens could only stare, mouths open, minds racing. Who was this human? And how could he have done what no one else could? Jack shrugged and pushed the mop along the floor. "Time to clean the next hallway," he muttered, completely unaware that he had just changed the history of Xyler 9 forever. After Jack left the glowing artifact behind, the cursed chamber did not rest. Deep inside, the walls, floors and floating symbols shifted again as if the room were alive. It was designed to test anyone who entered, to challenge their mind, their courage and their will. Every human, alien, or creature that had come before had failed. Fear had always been their downfall. But Jack was different. As Jack cleaned another part of the chamber, the floor suddenly changed beneath him. It became slippery like liquid glass, and reflections of creatures he had never seen appeared on the surface. Some looked like towering aliens with sharp claws. Others looked like floating shadows with glowing eyes. Many humans or aliens would have frozen in terror. Jack tilted his head. "Okay, weird reflection," he said and carefully stepped around them, keeping his balance. He even chuckled softly. "Not slippery enough to ruin my shoes, though." Then a low whisper filled the chamber. "Leave, you do not belong," it hissed. The shadows moved faster, reaching for him, twisting and stretching into frightening shapes. Jack blinked, took another bite of his sandwich and said, "Well, hello there. You look hungry too." He broke off a small piece of bread and held it toward one of the shadowy shapes. The shape paused, flickered and then receded slightly. Jack shrugged. "No? Okay, fair enough." The chamber shifted again. Now walls opened into mazes of twisting corridors. Flames appeared on the floor and ghostly hands reached out from the walls. Alien explorers had screamed and run in moments like this, but Jack moved steadily. He stepped over the flames as if walking through puddles, waved at the ghostly hands and muttered, "Careful, careful, you might get dusty." Every step he took was casual, as if nothing could harm him. At one point, the chamber conjured a storm of floating razor-sharp shards that spun like blades. Alien warriors would have panicked and tried to fight or flee. Jack, however, simply observed the pattern. They spin in a circle. All right, I'll go through the gaps." He stepped lightly, timing his movements carefully, still munching on his sandwich. Not a scratch. Not a stumble. A deeper part of the chamber opened, revealing a vast room filled with illusions. Jack saw people he knew, friends, family, even himself, but twisted into frightening forms. They screamed at him, accused him of things he had never done, tried to make him feel fear or guilt. Jack paused and looked at one of the visions, shaking his head. "Not really my style," he said and stepped past them, smiling politely. The chamber seemed confused. It had never encountered a mind so calm, so practical, so uninterested in fear or pride. It tried harder, sending visions of failure, traps that seemed impossible to escape, and whispers that promised pain or punishment. But Jack treated them all like minor annoyances. He even offered a crumb of his sandwich to one of the visions, joking, "Here, maybe that will cheer you up." Outside, the aliens watching through cameras were losing their minds. How is he still alive?" one cried. "He's ignoring everything. He's not supposed to do this." Another shook their head. "It's impossible, the chamber has never failed." Inside, Jack moved deeper, unaware of the chamber's confusion. He began to notice patterns in the illusions, shapes repeating, whispers echoing in the same rhythm. He realized that everything was predictable if he stayed calm. He even started humming his mother's tune again, the same one he had hummed in the hallway earlier. The chamber's defenses grew more intense. Giant alien beasts appeared, fires erupted across the floors, walls closed in and eerie voices threatened to overwhelm him. Yet Jack's focus never wavered. He dodged, stepped lightly and kept a casual pace. He treated every threat like a puzzle, using common sense and calm thinking instead of panic. Finally, he reached the heart of the chamber. A glowing platform hovered in the middle, surrounded by light that shifted in all colors of the rainbow. On it rested a small, intricate device, spinning slowly, humming softly. The chamber had designed this as the ultimate test. No one had ever touched it and survived. Jack, without hesitation, approached it. He looked at it curiously. A nice colors," he said. "I wonder what it does." He reached out with one hand, still holding his half-eaten sandwich in the other. The device glowed brighter, and the chamber seemed to pulse with energy. Shadows and visions tried one last time to scare him. Jack shrugged, smiled, and said, "Guess I'm just too late for your party." He touched the device. Nothing happened. No traps, no explosions, no punishments. The chamber paused, almost silently, as if it were reconsidering everything it had known. Jack had passed every test, not with strength, not with weapons, not with intelligence, but with simple human calmness, humor, and practical thinking. He looked around at the swirling lights and floating shapes. "Well, that was fun," he said, finishing the last bite of his sandwich. He stretched his arms and walked toward the exit, completely unaware that he had done the impossible. Outside, the aliens continued to watch in disbelief. They had seen centuries of failure, thousands of attempts, and no one had ever come close. Yet here was a human janitor eating a sandwich, walking calmly through the cursed chamber, surviving what no one else could. Jack pushed the door open and stepped back into the hallway. He took a deep breath of the familiar air of Xyler 9 and muttered, "Time to mop the next floor." The chamber pulsed softly behind him, still glowing, still alive, still confused. For the first time in its history, the cursed chamber had met a human it could not defeat. Jack stepped out of the cursed chamber, brushing imaginary dust from his jumpsuit. He looked around the quiet hallway, noticing the same aliens who had been watching him before. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, and their mouths hung open in shock. Jack waved casually. "Hello," he said. "Nice day for cleaning, isn't it?" The aliens could not speak. Their entire plan, their knowledge, their understanding of the chamber had been shattered. They had spent centuries studying it, guarding it, fearing it, and here was a human janitor, calm, practical, and completely unaffected. One of the senior alien scientists finally managed to speak. How did you do it?" he asked, voice trembling. Jack shrugged. "Do what? Walk in? Eat my sandwich? Clean the floors? Pretty normal day for me." The scientist frowned. "No, the chamber. It is impossible to survive. Everyone before you failed. Why are you fine?" Jack tilted his head and thought for a moment. "I guess I just didn't think it was scary. And I stayed calm. That seems to help." He smiled and patted his mop. "Also helps if you have a good sandwich." The aliens were baffled. They began to analyze the chamber again, checking their screens and notes. But something was different now. The lights in the chamber pulsed gently, and the symbols on the walls glowed faintly as if acknowledging Jack's presence. The chamber itself seemed alive, but it no longer tried to harm him. Curiosity overcame caution. A small group of alien scientists carefully entered the chamber, hoping to understand what had changed. As they moved inside, Jack followed them, still munching on a small snack. He noticed that the chamber seemed to respond differently to him. Obstacles appeared, but they were easier to navigate. Illusions flickered but did not last. Even the shadows and strange visions seemed less threatening. In the center of the chamber, the glowing pedestal and spinning device waited. Jack approached it again. This time, he looked closely at the patterns and colors, noticing tiny shapes and designs that he had not seen before. He touched the device lightly. A holographic projection sprang to life above it, filling the chamber with soft blue light. The aliens gasped. The projection showed ancient records of the chamber's creation. Centuries ago, an alien emperor had built the chamber to test strength, intelligence, and courage. But there was more, something no one had realized. The chamber was not only a test of power, it was a test of simplicity, humility, and calmness. It measured the heart, not the weapons. It judged the mind, not the knowledge. Jack leaned closer, still holding the remains of his sandwich. He looked at the holographic images and shrugged. "So, it's a kind of puzzle? Seems simple enough." He tapped on one of the floating symbols. The projection shifted, showing records of every attempt that had failed. Aliens with the most strength, the smartest scholars, and the bravest warriors all fell because they overthought it. They were afraid, greedy, proud, or impatient. Jack, on the other hand, had ignored the fear, ignored the traps, and treated the chamber like any other part of the station. A senior alien scientist, trembling with excitement, said, It was never meant to harm. It was designed to challenge the mind of the worthy. And you have passed where no one else could." Jack blinked. "Passed? I didn't do anything special. I just walked through and finished my sandwich." The chamber pulsed one more time, and a soft voice whispered from the walls, "Human, you have shown what we did not expect. Come. Simple. Brave." Jack tilted his head. Thanks." He gave a small laugh. "I guess that's one way to clean a floor." Outside the chamber, more aliens gathered, whispering excitedly. They had never seen a human act this way. In their eyes, Jack was no longer just a janitor. He was a symbol of something extraordinary, a being who could solve impossible challenges with simple logic, humor, and courage. Jack walked around the pedestal, examining the holograms. He noticed small alien inscriptions that even the experts had ignored. Looks complicated but kind of like a fancy mop," he said with a grin. "Guess I could use one of these someday." The alien stared. This human, who had no weapons, no armor, no special training, had not only survived but also uncovered the secret of the chamber. The centuries-old mysteries were finally revealed, and it had taken something as ordinary as calmness and common sense to do it. Jack smiled, patted the pedestal and turned toward the exit. "All right, time to get back to work," he said, shrugging. "Floors aren't going to mop themselves and I don't want to be late for lunch." The chamber pulsed gently behind him, almost like it was pleased. For the first time in its long history, it had been understood. The secret was no longer hidden. And Jack, the human janitor, had uncovered it without even trying. As he walked away, the aliens followed slowly, still in shock. They whispered among themselves, trying to understand what they had witnessed. They had learned something important. Humans could be extraordinary in ways they had never imagined. And sometimes, courage and intelligence came not from weapons or training, but from simple calmness, practicality, and a willingness to face the unknown without fear. Jack pushed open the chamber door one last time, stepped into the quiet hallway and took a deep breath. "Time for lunch," he said, pulling out another sandwich from his pocket. The aliens could only watch, amazed as he munched happily, unaware that he had changed everything they thought they knew about the cursed chamber and the humans who walked among them. Word spread quickly across Xyler 9. Aliens of all kinds whispered and gossiped about what had happened in the cursed chamber. Everyone knew that no human, no alien, no explorer had ever survived it. And yet, here was Jack, a simple human janitor, walking freely, smiling, and eating his sandwich as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Alien soldiers, scientists, and scholars crowded the hallways, staring at him. Some bowed respectfully, others simply gaped. Jack waved politely at a few and said, "Morning, everyone. Floors need mopping, so I'd better get to it." The senior alien scientist who had been following Jack's progress shook his head. "This human, he is remarkable. He did what none of us could. He survived the chamber, uncovered its secrets, and remained calm the entire time." Jack scratched his head and laughed softly. "Honestly, I just walked through. I didn't think it was scary. I didn't overthink it. And I kept my sandwich safe." He smiled as if that explained everything. The aliens were confused. How could a human, a simple janitor, succeed where trained warriors and brilliant scientists had failed? They began to realize that the answer was simple. Jack saw the world differently. While others were afraid, greedy, or proud, Jack stayed calm and practical. He did not rush. He did not panic. He did not assume danger where there was none. Soon, the news reached the other parts of the station. Students, cleaners, soldiers, and even visiting aliens gathered to hear the story of the human who had conquered the impossible. They came to see Jack, hoping to learn what made him so different. Jack, oblivious to his new fame, continued with his work. He mopped the floors carefully, occasionally stopping to fix a spill or wipe a railing. He still ate sandwiches while working. Some aliens approached him and asked questions, trying to understand his mindset. Jack replied simply, "I just did what made sense. I stayed calm. I took my time. And I finished my sandwich." The aliens stared at him in amazement. It seemed almost impossible that such ordinary actions could lead to such extraordinary results. But they had seen it happen. Jack had survived the cursed chamber, uncovered its secrets, and revealed the truth. Sometimes courage was not about fighting or proving yourself, but about being human, practical, calm, and thoughtful. The chamber itself seemed to acknowledge Jack's success. From the observation windows, the symbols glowed softly, and the lights pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. The humans and aliens watching could feel the energy shift. The chamber had been tamed, not by force, but by the simplicity and calmness of a human. Over the next few days, Jack became a symbol across the station. Aliens began to respect humans more, realizing that their ways of thinking were different, unpredictable, and powerful. Scholars wrote reports, soldiers told stories, and children pointed at him in awe as he passed through the halls. Jack did not seek attention. He continued cleaning, quietly fixing small problems wherever he went. Some aliens tried to imitate him, attempting to adopt his calm approach and practicality. But it was hard. Jack did not follow rules of bravery or intellect. They came naturally to him because he was human. His mindset was simple: do what is necessary, stay calm, and face challenges one step at a time. The station administrators finally held a meeting to honor Jack. They wanted to reward him, give him titles, and offer him opportunities beyond his janitor duties. Jack listened politely, smiled, and said, "I'm happy just cleaning floors and finishing my sandwiches. That's enough for me." The aliens were stunned. How could someone so ordinary accomplish something so extraordinary? They realized that humans were unlike any other species on the station. Their unpredictability, their calm courage, and their simple approach to challenges made them capable of feats no one else could imagine. Even the senior alien scientist who had doubted humans before nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps we have underestimated them all along," he admitted. "A human, just a human, has shown us that there are things we cannot predict, lessons we cannot learn without seeing it firsthand." Jack smiled and leaned on his mop. "Well, I guess every day has something new. Floors, spills, strange lights, and sandwiches. That's life." He chuckled, took another bite of his sandwich and continued his rounds. The story of Jack spread beyond Xyler 9. Across the galaxy, humans became known not just as workers or visitors, but as beings capable of solving the impossible with calm, humor, and practicality. Soldiers trained differently, scholars thought differently, and even the oldest aliens reconsidered their ways of teaching and testing. And yet for Jack, nothing had changed. He still mopped the floors, still ate sandwiches, still hummed his mother's tune as he worked. He did not care about fame or recognition. To him, life was simple: do your job well, stay calm, and enjoy the little things. The cursed chamber remained quiet, its lights pulsing gently in the background. It had met the one it could not defeat, the human who approached danger without fear or pride. Jack had proven that heroism did not always come from strength, skill, or wisdom alone. Sometimes it came from being human. Jack walked down the final hallway, mop in hand, finishing his last bite of sandwich. The aliens followed him silently, watching, learning, and admiring. He smiled softly and said, "All right, let's see what needs cleaning next." And with that simple act, Jack, the human janitor, had changed everything. No one on Xyler 9, or perhaps the galaxy, would ever look at humans the same way again.